Hi, I'm Ms. Collier, and today we're going to talk about the age of discovery or the age of exploration. It goes by either name, and both of them are correct. So here with my mad technical skills here, I'm going to share my screen because there's a lot of people involved in this, and I want you to see their faces. Come on, there we go. Just so you kind of know who we're talking about. All right, we're talking about the age of discovery, and it ran longer than 1600. Technically, honestly, parts of it are still going on today. However, what we're going to talk about is basically between 1400 and 1600. Okay, so this is the world as it looks today. And you'll see here is Spain, here is Portugal, France, where it says UK here, that's England. This is the United States over here, which is North America, United States, North America, and Canada. This is Baffin Island. That's going to come up. This is South America. Here's Brazil. And, oh, my map kind of cuts off the bottom of Argentina. Sorry about that, Argentina. This is Africa. And this part right down here at the very bottom is what they talk about when they talk about the Horn of Africa, which will come up later. And over here is India. Here is the Philippines. We'll talk about them. Here's China. And this area in here is what's known as the Indies. Okay. All of this is going to come up. I just kind of wanted you to have a picture in your mind where it was. Okay. The age of discovery kind of kicks off with Henry the Navigator, who was a prince in Portugal. He lived from 1394 to 1460. He didn't actually do any sailing himself, but he paid for expeditions. Now, he was the third son, which means he was probably not going to come to power. And in fact, he did not. He was always just a prince. He did never take the throne and become the king. But he did want to help his country, and he wanted to increase trade for Portugal because, let's be honest, trade is how you make money, and everybody wants more money. We're still like that today. It's not necessarily a great thing to be, but that's the way life is. So he would sponsor these people to go out and explore, and they actually founded several colonies, and they were all looking for that route from Europe by water to India, because that's where all of the cool spices and all of this stuff was. India, China, in the East. That's where all of the silks, the spices, everything that people wanted in the West was located in the East. And it was brought across on caravans and overland. And it was very expensive by the time it got to where it was going, because it was a very long journey. And so people wanted to be able to shorten the journey, and they didn't have airplanes or cars. And so the way you were going to shorten the journey was to be able to have a water route, to be able to bring things by ship. So that's what he was having people look for. Now, sadly, in 1441, he actually sponsored an expedition which captured African people, about 50 African people, and brought them to Portugal as slaves. This is the first documented time that we have where a European country captured African people and brought them out of Africa to Europe as slaves. Now, slavery had existed pretty much since there were more than 2 or 3 people involved in the entire world. Somebody always thought they should own somebody else. But this is the first time it was done for profit. That's the difference there. Okay. Now, Bartolomeo Diaz was actually a Portuguese explorer also. And in 1487, he sailed around the Horn of Africa, which was then known as the Cape of Storms. Now, remember, I showed you the Horn of Africa right down there at the very bottom of Africa. And if you were sailing, you can't sail across Africa. You had to sail all the way down and around and back up. And then you could sail over to India and China. He didn't make it that far. He kind of got around the coast of Africa, realized that now the coast is going back up north, and decided, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm going to go home now. And that's what he did. Now, we all know about Christopher Columbus. He believed that you could sail west to get to the east because he believed the earth was round and that if you just kept sailing, you wouldn't fall off the edge. You'd kind of, loop around at some point and come up on the other side of the earth. So in 1492, he did that. He sailed west to go east and actually found this land mass and believed that he had found an easier route to India. He believed he had landed in India or China. I'm not sure which one he actually thought where he was, because he was nowhere close to either of them. What he had actually discovered was the Bahamas, and then Cuba, and eventually Haiti. He never actually set foot on the North American continent or the Southern American continent. Never set foot on either of the Americas, ever. He had repeated his journey several times. I think he had 3 journeys in all, and he was convinced that he had discovered the East for years. And he just kept knowing that, if he just went a little further, he would find all of this cool stuff that Marco Polo had written about when he had gone to China. He is credited with discovering the New World because, he did find out that there was something in between him and where he wanted to go, even though he never actually set foot on the American landmass ever. Vasco da Gama was also a Portuguese explorer, and in 1497, he also sailed around Africa, but he renamed it the Cape of Good Hope, which I guess sounds better than the Cape of Storms. And he actually did sail back up the other side of Africa and reach India. So he actually established the water route that everybody was looking for. John Cabot has a very English name, but he was actually not from England. He had moved there and changed his name, and that's fine. But he sailed for England, but he was actually an Italian. He set out in 1497 from Ireland, and he was going to sail straight west from Ireland, not going to, juke around and try to sail around anything. He was going to sail straight west. And he landed in what is now Newfoundland, Canada. On his second voyage in 1498, he may have found all kinds of stuff, but we don't know because he did not return from that voyage and disappeared from history at that point. Amerigo Vespucci was a cartographer. That means he was a map maker, and he sailed with Alonso de Ojeda, and they sailed down to Brazil, South America, and mapped the coast of South America. His exploration diaries led later map makers to name the area America. Now, slightly before that, Pedro Alvarez Cabral in 1500 had sailed east from Portugal. Bass is not happy, sorry about that, to find passage to India. All of these guys wanted to find passage to India. On the advice of Vasco da Gama, he had sailed more towards the south as he went, and he discovered Brazil in South America. Ferdinand Magellan in 1519, they already knew about Brazil, so he sailed to Brazil, and then he sailed down the coast of South America. Cat, you okay? And up around the tip of South America and ended up in the Philippines, which is an island chain. He managed to upset the villagers that lived there, and he was actually killed, but most of his men survived. And the voyage continued under the navigator, whose name was Juan Sebastian del Cano. Del Cano returned to Spain after he had sailed up from the Philippines into the West Indies, those islands that I showed you, and bought a load of spices, and then sailed back around the Horn of Africa, which they knew about by this time, and sailed back up and returned to Spain. So Ferdinand Magellan's voyage, although Ferdinand Magellan himself did not, actually circumnavigated the globe, which means they sailed all the way around the globe and actually came back with a load of spices. Jacques Cartier was a French explorer. And after they had discovered that they could sail around the world they realized there's two great big land masses in the way. And this landmass in the way in the West is the American landmass. And wouldn't it be cool if we could find like a river or a series of rivers that went all the way across there and we could just sail across that instead of having to go all the way down around it? And we could just sail straight across it and get to India that much faster. They were not interested particularly in the American landmass at all. It was just in their way getting where they wanted to go. So they were searching for what was called the Northwest Passage, which was this way where you could sail through America on a set of rivers or one river. And they were looking for that. He discovered the St. Lawrence River, which led into the St. Lawrence Estuary, which was in Canada. Now, just so you know, an estuary is a partially enclosed area where the rivers and lakes and streams empty fresh water into one side, and the other side is, it's all kind of enclosed by land, and the other side is open to the sea. And so this is an area where freshwater and saltwater kind of mix, and it makes it an undrinkable kind of water because it's kind of gross, and it's sometimes called brackish, which means that it's mixed water, and it sometimes is very stagnant, and it's not good to drink or anything. But he didn't sail any farther up into the St. Lawrence area than that. He just found this estuary. Sir Martin Frobisher was a British explorer. He sailed in 1576 and discovered Baffin Island, which I showed you, in Canada. And he also discovered and named Frobisher Bay in Baffin Island. John Davis was another English explorer, and in 1586 and 1587, he explored the coast of Greenland and, kind of mapped all of it out. Henry Hudson was British, but he was sailing for a Dutch company. In 1610, he attempted to sail across Canada. They were still looking for that Northwest Passage. He thought he was doing very well, but his men were not having a good time. They mutinied, which means they took over the ship, put him in a little tiny boat, and set him adrift. And he was not seen again, as far as we know. Somebody may have seen him, but he never made it back to civilization, and he disappeared from history at that point. Now, what I've told you so far is the age of exploration as far as European explorers. This is what we all think. We're all taught in school, and we believe this is the way all of it happened. These were the first people to see these lands, except for the people that actually lived there. But let me tell you, there was another group of people that did some exploring that we don't usually talk too much about. So as a little bonus for you, I'm going to tell you about two of them. Erik Thorwalds Son, or Eric the Red, was a Viking. Now, Thorwalds Son, the son part means he was the son of a man named Thorwald. Okay, so he's Erik Thorwald's son. He was called Erik the Red because he had red hair. A lot of the Vikings apparently had red hair. He was born in Norway in the year 950, so a long time ago. His father was Thorvald Avaldson, and he was exiled for manslaughter. He had killed somebody, possibly by accident. I couldn't find the details in just a couple of minutes. I was willing to invest in this. And so his family moved to Iceland, which the Vikings had already settled. In 980, Erik got into some trouble and got banished from Iceland. This was one of the things they did. They didn't sentence you to death or, put you in jail. They just said, you know what? Get out of our community. You can't live with us. You're not behaving. Get out. Go away for maybe forever, or maybe just for so many years, and then you can come back. So in 980, he was banished from Iceland with his whole family, and he took his family and started moving away. And between 982 and 983, he discovered and explored Greenland, which is a very large island, but is pretty much covered in ice. Iceland is a much smaller island, but it has hot springs, the geothermal energy, and so it is much more habitable, even though it's a much smaller area. So there were people living on Iceland pretty early on. He actually went back and recruited people to come and live in Greenland and established a couple of colonies on Greenland, which survived on Greenland up until about the time Christopher Columbus was making his voyages in the 1490s. Then they believed that just based on the evidence, they believed these colonies must have been wiped out by disease. And the people that survived the epidemic moved maybe back to Iceland. Anyway, Erik Thorwalds Son, or Eric the Red, died sometime about 1000. Now his son, Leif Eriksen, sailed from Greenland back to Norway in about 1000 and became one of the people who served King Olaf I. He was charged by the king to spread Christianity throughout the world. So he sailed back to Greenland, and either by accident, because maybe he got blown off course, because, there were big storms and stuff. Maybe he got blown off course, or maybe deliberately, he didn't quite stop at Greenland. He kept going west and discovered Baffin Island in Canada. There is also evidence that at some point, either while sailing to Baffin Island, or because, again, he got blown off course, possibly, he actually discovered the mainland of North America and called it Vinland, Vinland, because there were wild grapes growing there. Now, he didn't make any colonies. He didn't claim this for his family or his country or anything, but there's evidence that he was there at some point, well before Columbus or any of the other guys started exploring. And even, in fact, recently, the remains of a settlement in Newfoundland that was a Viking settlement have been discovered, and archaeologists are studying that now. So this is kind of a cool deal. But we don't ever talk much about the Vikings. So I just wanted you to know a little bit about them. If you're interested in any of this stuff, there are lots of books you can read. Talk to your school librarian, go online, and with your parents' permission, of course, do some research. Lots of information out there. That's all I have for you today. Please give me a comment if you liked this. If you have something else you want me to talk about, let me know. Let me know what parts you liked, what parts you didn't like. Please be polite. It's early in the morning and I'm still not very awake. All right, that's all I have for you this time. I will see you next time on the Tortilla Cat Files. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.